I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. At today's Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, Senator Ted Cruz slammed Democrats for refusing to harden schools in the wake of school shootings. The subject of the hearing was protecting America's children from gun violence. During his speech, Cruz called for more armed police officers in schools. The hearing comes in the wake of the deadly massacre at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Let's take a listen to the Republican senator's remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to each of the witnesses for being here today. All of us are horrified at the mass murders we see unfolding across our country. Mass murders in schools, mass murders in churches, mass murders in large cities across our country, day after day and week after week. And I believe everyone on this committee wants to prevent those murders. In Texas, we've seen these horrific acts of evil repeatedly. I was in Uvalde the day after the shooting. I've seen the agony of the parents, of the teachers, of the school officials, of the law enforcement, of the grandparents of the entire community torn to pieces. I was in Santa Fe within about an hour of that horrific mass murder. I was in Sutherland Springs the day after that horrific shooting. I stood in that beautiful sanctuary and saw the chaos, saw the pews thrown to the side, saw the blood still pooled where innocent people had been murdered, innocent people down to an 18-month-old toddler shot and killed. I saw shattered cell phones covered in blood. I was in El Paso, I was in Midland, Odessa, I was in Dallas. Over and over again, we have seen these horrific crimes. And whenever they happen, there is a call that predictably comes out. A call of do something. Now listen, I agree with that call. I agree we need to do something. But I also believe we need to do something that actually will work, that will stop the next mass murder, that will keep people safe. I don't want to have to see another parent like Mr. Schachter who lost his son. The pain and agony you've experienced and far too many others have experienced. It is the worst nightmare for any parent. If we want to stop these murders, we know the approach that actually works. The approach that actually works is twofold. Number one, focus on the bad guys. Focus on the criminals. Focus on the felons and fugitives and those with serious mental illness that try to illegally buy firearms. Prosecute them and put them in jail. Get them off the streets. It also means that when people carry out crimes with firearms, prosecute them and lock them up. Make it a priority. You bring a gun to a crime and you are doing hard time. Get the trigger pullers off the streets. And then secondly, enhancing safety and security of vulnerable targets, and especially schools. Since Columbine, one after another dark, twisted monster has decided the way he can achieve what he thinks is immortality is go and murder little children. Now, I will note that I make it a policy never to say the names of any of these shooters, and I would encourage every member of this committee and every member of the press, these evil bastards deserve to be forgotten forever. But we can do a lot more to to make our schools safer. Mr. Schachter, thank you for your efforts pushing common sense legislation to make schools safer. I think the legislation you're fighting for makes a lot of sense. Repeatedly, I've introduced legislation to go after the criminals, to go after the felons and fugitives and those with serious mental illness, to prosecute them when they illegally buy firearms, to get them off the street, to prosecute the gun criminals, and to provide resources to schools, to make schools safer, to install safety equipment in schools. You and I sat down, Mr. Schachter, in my office, and we talked about how frustrating, how maddening it is that at schools we keep seeing the same pattern over and over again. The monster in Parkland went through an unlocked back door. The monster in Santa Fe went through an unlocked back door. The monster in Uvalde went through an open back door. We keep having the same vulnerabilities and not fixing them. Repeatedly, I've introduced legislation to provide funding to put security equipment on campus, and the most important security tool we can have is armed law enforcement on campus. In Uvalde, if that door had been locked and shut, if there had been a single entrance like we have at a bank, like we have at a federal building, and if there had been armed police officers at that single entrance, when that monster arrived, those police officers could have stopped him, could have shot him, could have killed him before he murdered 19 students and 2 teachers. I hope and pray that finally this time we won't see partisan posturing. We won't see politicians trying to disarm law-abiding citizens, but we'll come together and say, let's focus on what works, let's focus on the bad guys, and let's make our schools safer. Thank you.